Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen Amma ba'du fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. In the name of Allah, the kind, the caring, my brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, blessings and mercies of one true God be upon each and every one of us. Alhamdulillah, with the help of Allah, with the guidance of Allah, this is the second night we are assembled and gather here in this beautiful masjid to discuss the life of beloved Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam and the lessons that we can learn from his life. So inshallah, today I would be discussing with you a very important topic, or I would say a very important dream that changed the history. So the story of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam with his son, this is something we all have heard many times. But inshallah today, just few important things from a different perspective, inshallah, we're going to hear and we're going to see, inshallah, how we can benefit from these verses of the Holy Quran in which Allah talks about Prophet Ibrahim and his son Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam. So before even we discuss those verses in which Allah talks about these things, we all know there is a title that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam has, which is Khalilullah, the close friend of Allah. This is the title we all are aware of. But then there is another title mentioned in the Holy Quran about Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam that has not given to any other prophet. This is his unique title. Allah Almighty mentioned in the same surah, this title is mentioned in another surah, Surah An-Nahl, verse number 120. Allah mentioned, Inna Ibrahima kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifa. Indeed, Prophet Ibrahim was a nation in himself. You know how we say in nowadays, one-man army. So Allah said, Prophet Ibrahim, he was a nation by himself, devotedly obedient to Allah, وَلَمْ يَكُ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, inclining towards truth, and he was not among the mushrikeen. He was not among the people who associate any partner with Allah Almighty. So this title, that this man is a nation by himself, this title has not given to any other prophet beside Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is the level, and why Allah mentioned that? Because this man carries within himself the qualities of a righteous nation. You talk about any quality, he has it. He has it. And hence the reason he achieved that title, Khalilullah, the close friend of Allah Almighty. Inshallah, we're going to further discuss his life and what are the few important things about his life and what makes him Khalilullah. Inshallah, we're going to discuss that. So inshallah, the few verses I am going to discuss are from Surah As-Safat that I just recited. It's starting from verse number 100. But before, inshallah, we talk about that, we all know that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, he waited many years for his child, Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam. According to Tafsir ibn Kasir, it is mentioned that he was 86 or plus when he had Hazrat Ismail, his son Hazrat Ismail radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So he waited many years to achieve that child, to have that child. He become old, his wife become old, And after long waited, or after many years of making dua and begging Allah Almighty, then finally he was blessed with a child, Hazrat Ismail radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So he made dua, verse number 100. He said, Rabbi habli minas salihin. My Lord, grant me a child from among the righteous. Grant me a righteous child. Now, a few things you have to keep it in your mind as we go along, inshallah. Here he make this dua that, Ya Allah, grant me a righteous child. Particularly, he did not merely ask for a child. He said, Ya Allah, grant me a child who is obedient to you. A righteous child. And what Allah replied, verse number 101. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. Allah said, so we gave him good news of a forbearing boy. If you look at dua, he made this dua generally, Ya Allah, bless me with a righteous child. So Allah didn't say we gave you a righteous child. Rather he mentioned we gave you a child who has sabr. We gave you a child who has patience, who is calm, who is gentle. And why was that mentioned? Because this verse has direct connection to the verses that we are going to mention. Basically, this verse has direct connection to the story of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam that we are just going to mention. Then Allah Almighty mentioned, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيُ. So imagine finally receiving a child that you waited your entire life. You prayed for and you begged Allah Almighty, and then finally one day Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam sees a dream. And what was that dream? Let me mention this verse number 102. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ. O my beloved son, indeed I have seen a dream that I must sacrifice you. Ya abati, fanzur madha tara. He mentions, so tell me, what is your opinion? What do you think about this matter? Or what do you think about the dream that I just had? What is your opinion? He mentioned, son Hazrat Ismail mentioned, قَالَ يَا أَبَتِ افْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرْ. O my beloved father, do as you were commanded, or do as you were ordered by Allah Almighty. سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the patient one. Now before inshallah we talk about this verse, one thing keep it in your mind, that the dream of ordinary people is not revelation. But the dream of prophets is revelation, is hujjat. So when a prophet sees a dream, they must act accordingly. But that is not the case with us. So when Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had this dream where he seeing that he is going to slaughter his child, he immediately obeyed. He went to his son. He did not delay. He did not say, well, maybe later. He didn't say, I don't know if this dream is from Allah Almighty or from Shaitan. How can a father going to sacrifice his own child? How can a father going to kill his own child? Having all these thoughts in mind, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam did not pay attention to these matters. He immediately went to his son and said, well, okay, I had this dream. What do you think about this matter? And the reply was what? Well, do as you were commanded. So this shows that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he had that zeal, or he had that in his mind that nothing is greater than Allah Almighty, or nothing is greater than obeying Allah Almighty. He just submit himself in front of Allah Almighty without any delay, without thinking this and that, without discussing with this one or that one, with family members or with wife, etc., etc. No, he immediately went to his son. What do you think about this matter? Because this matter is related to you. So this shows, hence the reason he had that title, Khalilullah, the close friend of Allah. But again, let us discuss, inshallah, this verse. You see, the verse started with, when he reached the age of working with him, with his father, then he sees a dream. The question is that, my brothers and sisters, why didn't Prophet Ibrahim see a dream when Ismail was a child, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old? Right? Why he sees that dream when Ismail become mature? According to different tafasirs, he was 13 to 17, in between, when Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and he had conversation about this matter. But the question is that why didn't he see that dream before, when he was 3 years old, 5 years old, when he was a child? The answer is that, my brothers and sisters, killing a child or slaughtering a child without his permission, without taking his opinion, is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. The child who doesn't even know about his life, the child who doesn't even understand the sweetness of youth or the sweetness of his life, slaughtering that child is not a big deal. Allah could have ordered that. Or Prophet Ibrahim may have seen this dream in that particular age. No. But he saw that dream when Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam was mature enough to differentiate between right and wrong. When he was mature enough to understand the purpose of life. When he was mature enough to understand what is life, what is youth. He had that understanding. And then he submitted himself in front of Allah Almighty. That is far, far, far greater in the sight of Allah Almighty than giving his child when he was 2 years old, when 3 years old. So this shows, my brothers and sisters, that not only the father, but the son also, both of them submitted completely in front of Allah Almighty. When you are a young, you definitely love you love yourself, right? Hence the reason sometimes people say, I don't want to get old, although that doesn't gonna work. You have to go that path. So Ismail, a young boy, 13, 15, 17, a young boy, say no problem. My father, do as you were commanded. He submitted himself in front of Allah Almighty. And then, my brothers and sisters, when we look at another part of this verse, when he saw that dream, he came to his son, and what he said? He said, I saw a dream in which I am going to slaughter you. Fandur ma tara. What is your opinion? What is your opinion? So even though the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had that dream, and obviously he understood that dream comes from Allah Almighty, yet and still he discussed with his son. This shows that true leadership. This shows that, my brothers and sisters, how should we treat our own children. It's not like because you are a father and you're going to order, do what I said. Do what I said. I'm not going to hear anything. Because I am father or I am mother, so you just have to listen to me. You just have to obey me. Without listening children or without taking their opinion, my brothers and sisters, this is the mentality we have. But Prophet Ibrahim had a different mentality. Although he had that dream from Allah Almighty, yet and still he came and he discussed with his son. He didn't say, no, you're not going to say anything. I'm not going to listen to you. No or yes. No. Absolutely no. What do you think? Are you ready? Are you okay with that? Are you able to handle this test? And then, subhanAllah, look at the wisdom and look at the reply of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam. And then he said, Fandur ma tara, ya abatif'al ma tu'mar. He said, do as you were commanded. And there is a very interesting point that I am going to mention. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when he had that conversation with his son, what he said? He said, I have seen a dream that I must sacrifice you. Right? He didn't mention that Allah has ordered me to slaughter you, or Allah has commanded me to slaughter you. He didn't mention that. He just said, I have seen a dream in which I am going to slaughter you. But look at the reply of Hazrat Ismail. What he said? He said, do as you were commanded. How he know that this was order of Allah Almighty? How he knows that this is something which is ordered by Allah Almighty? Because he understood that this great test or this great or big thing can never be a personal desire of my father. How can a father kill his own child? So Ismail understood that. He understood how this can never be a personal desire of my father. This has to be from Allah Almighty. So that's why he didn't say, do as you see or do as you wish or do what you want because you are father. No. He recognizes that whatever is going on, that is exceptional. That is not ordinary. And this order or this command that my father is telling me is not something from his desires, or it can never be his personal desire. He mentioned, do as you were commanded. Subhanallah. This shows, my brothers and sisters, the wisdom in Ismail, a young boy, 13, 15, 17 years old. And nowadays, if we look at the condition of our children, my brothers and sisters, and if you tell your children, I am going to take away your phone if you are not going to pray, you are in trouble. Forget about praying namaz or not. You are in trouble. Why you said that? How dare? This is the attitude and this is the mentality our children have. You agree or not? Or if you say, I'm not going to give you food until you pray namaz or until you do your work. But reply is very shocking. Reply is very shocking. And sometimes you say, better I not tell you anything. Because the reply sometimes we have from our children, youth, it's very shocking, my brothers and sisters. And here look at the same young boy who now understanding his life, who now understanding the sweetness of his life, a young boy who want to live his entire life. And on the other hand, the father who prayed his entire life to have that Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, both said no problem. Once Allah want this, we are ready. We are ready to sacrifice our own self. And this sacrifice was not easy, my brothers and sisters. Again, as I mentioned, if you see a dream that you are going to kill your own child, what are you going to say? That is 200% from shaitan. Right? We're not even talking about that. We are not even talking about that you go and kill your child or slaughter your child. That is far, far, far greater. A small things, my brothers and sisters. How they say, petty things? Small things, my brothers and sisters, we are not ready to sacrifice for the sake of Allah Almighty, let alone giving ourselves. So, the main lesson that we understand from the story of Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam is that when Allah is in front of you, nothing should matter. Nothing should be greater than Allah Almighty. And when you put your desire in front of Allah, when you put your time, your businesses, your family matters, all these things in front, Allah becomes like a background. But Hazrat Ibrahim and his son teaching us something very important, my brothers and sisters, that true sacrifice is that you submit yourself in front of Allah Almighty without any delay. That is true sacrifice. And I will mention, inshallah, the concept we have nowadays about Qurbani. That concept is very easy. But the true concept that we supposed to learn, we totally ignored. Let's continue this. فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَا وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ, verse number 103. So after seeing that dream, both of them agreed. Prophet Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam said, my father, you do as you were commanded, and if Allah wills, you will find me among the patient. And now look at the first verse I recited. When he make that dua, Ya Allah, give me a righteous child, what Allah said? We're going to give you a child who has sabr. Isn't it connecting, right? Because Allah already had planned all this before even the birth of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, that this is something going to happen. And hence the reason Allah didn't say we're going to give you a righteous child. Rather, he mentioned we're going to give you a child who has sabr. Because we know what we're going to do with that child. We know what we're going to do with that child and what test he is going to go through in his life. Hence the reason we already have given him this quality. He will be sabr. He will have sabr in his life. Even in that particular moment, the greatest test, my brothers and sisters, he said, no problem. If Allah wills, you will find me patient. And the word he used, insha'Allah. And that insha'Allah is way different than our insha'Allah nowadays, by the way. When we say, are you coming, and we say insha'Allah, it means you're likely not going to show up. This is the reality, right? But his insha'Allah was different. He said, even my being or me being patient or me having sabr is totally depend on Allah Almighty. And as the reason he said, inshallah, if Allah wills, because this test is not something that I am going to bear. But yes, if Allah is on my side, if Allah wills, you will find me among those who have sabr in his life. So that's the reason he said, inshallah. So make this dua and and learn this lesson from Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, that when next time you say inshallah, you truly mean it. Otherwise, I always mention that learn to say no in your life. It is always better. Yes, sometimes when someone is very close to you and he asks you for a favor or time or money or something like that, you just don't want to say no. And then you're saying, I will do it, I will give you today, tomorrow, and you're just going to ruin your relationship. So it's always better to say no, if you can't do it. If you can do it truly, sincerely, then say this phrase that was uttered by Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, inshallah, if Allah wills, I will do that. And then falamma aslama wa tallahu lil jabin. Then when they had both submitted themselves, and he put him down upon his forehead. You know, when you're going to slaughter an animal, right? You put them one side. Because this side you kind of going to cut his neck or stuff like that. So the same way, in a same fashion, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam lay his son down. And according to many mufassirin, according to many commentators of the Holy Quran, Prophet Ibrahim tried multiple times to cut the neck. But Allah ordered the knife to not cut. Don't penetrate. It wasn't penetrating. The same way, when Prophet Ibrahim, he was put into fire, and Allah ordered the fire, do not burn. He was in the fire, but yet not burn. The same way, he was trying to cut the neck of his own son, but the knife was not penetrating. Why? Because that was never the purpose, my brothers and sisters. How can a God order to kill your own child? How can a merciful Allah order you to kill your own child. That was never the case. This was never gonna happen. That was just a test for Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. And he said, no problem. I am Khalilullah, I am your friend, and I am going to do that. And then when he tried to cut multiple times, what happened? وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَنْ يَا Ibrahim. Allah mentioned, we call out to Ibrahim. When he was trying to cut the neck of Hazrat Ismail, we call out to Hazrat Ibrahim and we said, قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا, that you have fulfilled the vision. You have fulfilled what we were expecting from you. And inna kadhalika najzil muhsinin. And this is how we give reward or compensate those who have ihsan. My brothers and sisters, Allah said, this is how we reward. How Allah reward? That the knife didn't even penetrate. Knife didn't even work. Allah said, this was never going to happen, my dear friend. This was never the case. I don't want your child. I don't want your child. I just wanted to see how close friend you are to me. I know you are Khalilullah, but let me see how Khalil you are. And by the way, Khalil is someone, if we try to understand in today's life, Khalil is someone, when you are in problem, you say, let me call Khalil. You need money, you say, let me call Khalil. You feeling hungry, you say, let me call Khalil. That is Khalil. The first person who comes in your mind, that is your Khalil, a close friend. So you can't achieve that big title without going through this big test. Or the first title I mentioned, which was mentioned by Allah Almighty, that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he was a nation by himself. You can't have that title without going through this test. So Allah mentioned that you have fulfilled my command, you have fulfilled the order, you have fulfilled what we were expecting from you. You don't need to continue. Just finish. قَدْ صَدَّقْتُ الرُّؤْيَا. You are truly my Khalil. No, you are truly my Khalil. This is called Khalilullah. This is called true friend, my brothers and sisters. And then Allah himself mentioned, إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْبَلَاءُ الْمُبِينَ. Indeed, that was truly the clear trial or the big trial. So one thing is that we understanding this is something very big. This was a great test that Prophet Ibrahim went through. But then again, Allah himself mentioned that this test, you were thinking it is easy, but that was bala'um mubin, a massive test, a big test. A test that many would fail, but you are passed. You have fulfilled that vision. So Allah himself mentioned, Inna hadha lahu al-bala'ul mubin, that this test was very difficult, but you have fulfilled that. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. And then at the end Allah mentioned that we exchange or we substitute this sacrifice with an animal or with something, as we are aware of. What they say? What was substitute? Like a ram or sheep. Then it was substitute or that was exchanged by that. But Allah Almighty mentioned that وَفَدَيْنَاهُ. We exchange that. And here story finished, by the way, right? But now the question that we're going to ask to ourselves, Prophet Ibrahim sacrificed the most loved one. Prophet Ibrahim sacrificed, or he was ready to sacrifice his own son. That son he got after many years. What are we today ready to sacrifice for the sake of Allah Almighty? That is true Qurbani. The Qurbani concept we have, sending money India for 350, that Qurbani is not. That Qurbani is very easy. Every one of us or each one of us can do that Qurbani. But the true Qurbani that Allah Almighty is talking about here, hardly we are going to do that. And that is to sacrifice your ego for the sake of Allah Almighty. Sacrifice your time for salah for the sake of Allah Almighty. Sacrificing your sin for the sake of Allah Almighty. Sacrificing your bad habits for the sake of Allah Almighty, that is true sacrifice that we need to do. But rather we prefer giving sacrifice, or we rather giving 300 or 250, and we happy that we have commemorated the sunnah of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. And you know one thing, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ, when Allah said we exchanged with a sheep or with a ram, that is mentioned at the end, just a small verse. And prior to that, there are 6, 7, 8 verses that talking about this test, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Ismail, and their trial, their test, their submission, their obeying Allah Almighty. All that is mentioned in 5, 6 or 7 verses, and Qurbani is only mentioned in 1 verse. I'm not denying Qurbani, by the way, right? Don't misunderstand. We have to do Qurbani, is wajib once you have ability and means. But the true Qurbani is, my brothers and sisters, when we sacrifice many things that are not recommended, that are not suggested, that are not loved, that are not liked by Allah Almighty, that is called true Qurbani. And Qurbani mean basically, we always say Qurbani. Qurbani mean basically to sacrifice. And sacrifice is not all about animal. There are many things we have to sacrifice for the sake of Allah Almighty, if we truly want to commemorate the sunnah of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. So this was the topic, my brothers and sisters, that I wanted to share with you all, that always remember that submission matters in the sight of Allah Almighty. Obeying Allah Almighty, that is something we have to do. And as I mentioned, this Qurbani, this type of Qurbani we have to do throughout our life. Right? Killing one animal is after one year. But this kind of sacrifice, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Ismail did in form of submission, in form of obeying Allah Almighty, in form of surrendering themselves in front of Allah Almighty. This Qurbani or this sacrifice we have to do throughout our life. And then you can say, yes, I am commemorating the sunnah of Ibrahim. Because this is very hard. This Qurbani is very hard, my brothers and sisters. So we make dua that Allah Almighty grant us tawfiq to truly submit ourselves in front of Allah Almighty. We make this dua that Allah Almighty grant us tawfiq to sacrifice all the bad habits, all the sin, all the wrong action, all the wrong activities for the sake of Allah Almighty. Say Ameen Ya Rabbal Alamin. Ameen Bijahin Nabiyil Ameen Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. My topic finished, inshallah. So we still have 10 to 15 minutes. We are going to do some dhikr, inshallah. As we mentioned, every night we're going to have Quranic recitation, opening dua, a short discourse, and after that, inshallah, dhikr, and then closing dua, and then, inshallah, Isha Salah. And don't forget dinner as well, inshallah. So let us remember Allah Almighty, make mention. Allah mentioned in the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, that in the remembrance of Allah, hearts do find satisfaction. So, inshallah, we are going to remember Allah. We are going to say few sentences, few particular zikr. If it is possible for you, inshallah, close your eyes and concentrate and say these phrases with the presence of your mind, with the presence of your heart. And as Maulana yesterday was mentioning very beautifully, that these days, if we look at the life of all Hajis, right? One sentence they are saying over and over again, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, La Sharika Laka Labbaik, Innal Hamda Wan Ni'mata Laka Wal Mulk, La Sharika Lak. Right? So this phrase is all about the greatness of Allah Almighty. This phrase is all about praising Allah Almighty. So in a similar way, inshallah, although we were not able to perform Hajj or we were not able to go, but at least we can imitate them. We can do at least what they are doing, inshallah. So we are going to do dhikr of Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, and then alhamdulillah, and then inshallah we are going to do dhikr of beautiful kalma, la ilaha illallah, inshallah al-aziz. So let us say first Allahu Akbar few times, inshallah.